We are on page 367. 367. We're going to talk about type 1 and type 2 errors. Okay? So there are different kinds of errors that you can make. All right. So let's say we did so let's go ahead and go straight to example number 2. Example number 2. Consider the claim that a medical procedure designed to increase the likelihood of a baby girl is effective. You remember this? We did this before? We did this whatever, right? And it is given P is greater than 0.5. Given the following null hypothesis. So let's say that the whole of here is that the whole is P is equal to 0.5, where the ha is, this is what we're trying to prove. We're trying to prove that the probability, if you take this drug, the probability of you having a baby girl is greater than 0.5. Okay? And we did that, and what? Okay, so we're trying to find out what the type 1 and type 2 error is. So a type 1 error, so we're on top of page 368. 368, we are going to reject the whole, or we're either going to reject it or fail to reject, right? And here we have on the columns, we have the whole is true. And here we have the whole is false. Okay? So, if the whole is false, I'm supposed to reject the whole, correct? Does that make sense? Right? So, hey, I'm okay with this. This is what's supposed to happen. Right? What's not supposed to happen is when the whole is true, I do not want to reject the whole, right? Right? So this is a type 1 error. Okay. On the other hand, if the whole is true, we fail to reject the whole. Does that make sense? Right? So this is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Over here is the type 2 error. When the whole is true, the whole is false. When the whole is false, okay, I do not want to fail to reject it, right? Okay? I want to reject the whole. Correct? Are we good? So, if I reject the whole, I can only have a type 1 error. Does that make sense? All right? Type 1 error only happens when I reject the whole, whereas a type 2 error only happens when I fail to reject the whole. Okay? So this is kind of ambiguous a little bit, so let's see what happens. So what's a type 1 error in our term here? Here. A type 1 error would be the whole is true, but I reject the whole. Meaning what? Meaning that the medication does not work, and I'm going to say that it works. That make sense? Right? So the medication actually does not give you a larger probability of having a daughter, but I'm going to say, oh yeah, it works. So if you want a baby girl, you should just go on and keep on taking this drug. Okay, so that would be a type 1 error. Okay, what's a type 2 error here? Type 2 error when the whole is false, this actually works. This wonder drug actually works, so if you take it, you're going to get baby girls, but I'm going to fail to reject. So you understand what happened there? You see the difference between the type 2 and type 1 error? Okay. So I can ask the question like I did right now. I can give you the ho and the ha and ask you to find out which a type 1 or type 2 error is. Also, alternatively, I can tell you, I give you the ho and the ha, and I said that I reject the ho. Then I can ask you, what type of error did I just commit? Or what kind of error could I have committed? And what is that? What is the consequences? Does that make sense? Let's say that I'm a potato chip manufacturer, right? And I have truckloads of potatoes coming into my place, all right? So when the truckloads come in, when the potatoes come in, do I want to take just go ahead and take all the potatoes? I want to test them, right? Because I don't want any bad potatoes there, right? Because I want to produce a good quality potato chip, right? So my threshold is 8%. So if I randomly picked, the potatoes, and I get do the sample, right? If I get more than 8%, what am I going to do? You're going to reject that truckload, right? Go back. I don't want this truck, right? Because I got trucks coming in. I'm not taking that truck, right? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, right? So let's say that we did this, okay, and the truck came in, and I committed a type 1 error. What does that mean?
It means that you rejected it, but you still accepted it?
I rejected the whole, which means that I said, this is not true, and this is true, but it's an error, right? Which means that in actuality, the truck was good. The potatoes were good. I should have accepted them, but I sent them away. Okay? What happens if I committed a type 2 error? What happened?
They were bad, but you still took it.
Correct. And what's the bad thing about that?
Then you have bad potatoes.
Then I have bad potatoes. Then the consequences, I will produce bad potato chips. My customers are going to eat my potato chips and say, "Oh, these suck. I'm not buying these anymore." Right? Different consequences. Type 1, type 2 error. Okay. Another thing that you need to know here is that it just happens to be that the possibility of a type 1 error is exactly the same as your alpha. Okay? Why this happens is beyond the scope of this class. We're not going to get into it. But if I had a alpha of 5%, right? Because I'm doing a significance level of 0.95, then the possibility of me having a type 1 error is 5%. Does that make sense? We good there? So this is kind of like the false positive on a test, right? Right? That's that type of thing. Okay, like you took a test to see if you had cancer, and you did a type 2 error, right? Which means that you should have said that you had cancer, but it's a false negative, right? I did the test. Oh, it came out negative. You're good to go. So what's the consequence of that? You have cancer, you do not know, you do not get the treatment, you die. Right? Okay. So some of these errors are pretty bad. Okay? Just letting you know.
So I think even if you get a positive test on cancer.
Because this is what happens, like if you, remember, you're watching TV and you always have hear about these drugs, about this. And what do they always say? They always claim there's a disclaimer that says what? Well, side effects, and then what else? A false positive is possible. always say a false positive test. You know, there can be a false positive or whatever. Okay. Okay. That's all we're gonna do today.